Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavali. On today's show, we will react to the weekend's Serie A action. Napoli secured a massive win to stay 3 points clear at the top of the Serie A table, thanks to a Giacomo Raspadori free kick at Lecce. Inter rested their entire team in the 1-0 win over Barcelona, in the 1-0 win over Verona.
I wish it's a 1-0 win over Barcelona.
Yes, that would be perfect, wouldn't it?
That would be brilliant.
Yeah, ahead of the big Champions League semi-final second leg at San Siro, we will be previewing that game in full. That's what it's all about with Inter today. Atalanta consolidate third and relegate Monza in a 4-0 thrashing. But the top four race is absolutely crazy. This is wild stuff. Roma, Lazio, Juventus, all level on points with 3 games to go. Bologna 1 point behind them. Then there's Fiorentina as well, just a little bit further back. It's absolutely mad. So we're going to discuss all of their games, but also we're going to do a little rundown, a little prediction, like who do we think is going to grab that final Champions League spot, because it's insane. Also in Europe this week, we have the second leg between Fiorentina and Real Betis in the Conference League. Real Betis winning 2-1 in the first leg. So that is another game between Italy and Spain in Europe, which is everything is on the line. And we'll also have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie ASS of the week. We have some incredible Premfaces this week, which you're going to enjoy. So stay till the end for that. A quick heads up though, for all Serie A fans in the UK and Ireland, you can stream every single match live on OneFootball. No matter which team you are backing, OneFootball's got you covered. You can watch via the OneFootball app on your phone or connected TVs from Apple TV, Google TV, Samsung, LG and Fire TV, or on the website tv.onefootball. And what's even better is that you can choose how you watch it. You can grab a team or season pass to watch all the matches until the end of the season, or just the ones from your favourite club. There's also a match day pass for £9.99 to watch all the weekend's games, or a single match on pay-per-view for £4.99. And if you miss the live game, you'll still get access to all the match highlights too. So if Serie A is your thing, OneFootball is where it's at. We have a link in the description of the episode for you to buy your preferred stream. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing the weekend's Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week without any ads, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday where we answer all of the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction, and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $3.99 a month. Plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify for the same price. The link is in the description. You can also now watch us on YouTube, and you can also become a patron on YouTube via YouTube memberships. Just go to our YouTube channel on youtube.com/@itafootpod for more details. And for all of you that do listen on Spotify, Apple, and iTunes podcasts, and for those of you that also watch us on YouTube, we'd really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow, give us a like, subscribe to us, because all of that really does help to allow us to grow and do more quality content for you guys. Okay, let's get into today's show. So let's start off with the Scudetto race at the top of the table. And Napoli, 3 points ahead of Inter going into the weekend. They stay 3 points ahead of Inter at the end of the weekend. Napoli played first at Lecce, a homecoming for Antonio Conte. And Napoli get the win, just 1-0. A quite tight game. Napoli, though, do enough to win. It's another step closer to the Scudetto for Napoli, Nima, which means that they now need 7 points from their last 3 games, and probably out of the 4 matches that they could slip up in, the most likely places were going to be the 2 away games. This game away at Lecce, and then the game away at Parma, which is probably the toughest of all on the penultimate match day. So really, they've got one of the 2 kind of potential banana skins out of the way, haven't they?
They have. They did. Lecce are fighting for survival, but Lecce are an awful, awful side as well. They don't look well at all, and of course, having lost their physio and the way that this was handled and how disrespected Lecce felt and their fan base felt and so on. So it's been quite the week for Lecce, and also of course with Antonio Conte, the prodigal son, coming home. There was a banner going around. Which there was a photo of Lecce fans holding a banner going around, which I've seen some reports in Naples say that it was from 2020, but I do think it bears discussion because a lot of people don't know what this is about, and the banner in question, whether it was yesterday or on Saturday or 2 or 5 years ago, it read Antonio Conte, a man without identity, and you're sei la merda della nostra città. You're the shit of our city. Basically, the reason for this is he's from Lecce. He's born and bred there. He still has a house in the center of the city. He came up through the ranks there. He referred to before the game saying, "This is my city. This is my home." He, of course, goes to Juve. And in 97, I think it was, 31st of August at Delle Alpi in 1997, a Juve host Lecce. They win 2-0. Filippo Inzaghi scores, he scores. But the difference is, of course, that he celebrates in a manner he celebrates, and the Lecce fans can't forgive that. And they feel that he abandoned them and that he stabbed them in the back by doing that. And then, of course, you fast forward it to December 2007, or when he's appointed to replace Giuseppe Materazzi at Bari. A few months after that appointment, he's the coach of Bari, playing against Lecce. Lecce were chasing Serie A. Bari were nowhere, they hadn't done a good season, so they were somewhere languishing in mid-table mediocrity at that time. And Lecce are at home at Via del Mare. Bari win that game. Again, Conte celebrates. And it's also the fact that a Leccese sulla panchina di Bari. I mean, if you don't know, there is a huge rivalry between Lecce and Bari. And of course, the very idea that someone from Lecce would coach at Bari is unacceptable. So Lecce, however, do get promoted to the Serie A that season via playoffs. But the following season, of course, Bari win the Serie B, and Bari is the club that really launches Antonio Conte's career, and the rest is history. So that's kind of what this is about, and they haven't forgotten that. And they did boo him, even though the banner in question, we don't, whether it was from 2020 or whether it was from yesterday. I've seen some conflicting reports, as I mentioned. It doesn't really matter, because when they definitely booed him when Napoli came in with a bus. There's videos of that going around. So there is that kind of angle as well, which is very, very typical of. But
it was a victory masterminded by Conte, because he changed his formation again in this match to a 4-4-2. Obviously, because Napoli have got quite a few players out, and he's had to change his system, and he decides to go to a 4-4-2 in this game. And the player that he brings in to play up front with Romelu Lukaku is Giacomo Raspadori, and it's Raspadori who scores the winner with a free kick. And I think what we've seen this season with Conte is that I actually think that Conte has become a more complete manager this season, because one of the criticisms of Conte in the past, along with the fact that he can't. The biggest criticism of Conte has always been that he can't do two competitions. He can't combine Europe with Serie A, and that's fair. We've seen that throughout his career. The other criticism has been he's
Too
lacked
rigid.
He's lacked
Too
the plan
rigid
B.
tactically.
Yeah, he's lacked the plan B. He's had one system, one way of playing, and if he needs to change, either because players are injured or he needs to change formation to adapt to that, or in games when you're chasing a game, you need a goal, or you need to change your system for one reason or another. This season, he's become a more complete manager. He's changed the system so many times. He started the season with the back three, then he went to a 4-3-3, then we went back to a back three when Kvara and Kvara was sold, and then Neres got injured, and they had no wingers, they had no pace, so he went to two up front. Now he's playing a 4-4-2, but he's also had other little tweaks as well, without going into loads of boring detail. So he's showed himself to be very complete. And using the right players at the right time, like Raspadori in this game.
I've always maintained that Antonio Conte is at his absolute best when he's back against the wall, and he has to make do with what he's got. I think that is where he showcases what an absolutely tactical genius he is. Everywhere he's been, when there isn't signings coming in, when he loses players to the transfer window or whatever, and they're not coming in, he always finds a way. I mean, at Inter, what he did with Eriksen and Perisic was unbelievable. He's done it before as well with a Juve, where he went from a 3-4-2-4 to a 3-5-2, and then he somehow managed to turn Pirlo, who was, has never been known for his for being a marathon runner, but he made Pirlo run a lot. And it worked. This ability he's got to get players on board to do what he wants them to do in the system, and again to just turn magic, turn water into wine, and make them work in the system. Victor Moses as a wing back at Chelsea. We can go on and on and on. Same thing here. Spinazzola as a winger in a 4-3-3 or a 3-4-3 even. He's at his best when he does that. And but one thing and I think that's kind of what, to put it into perspective, why he's been so, exactly as you pointed out correctly, and I've been thinking about that as well, the fact that he's shown that he's evolved in terms of what a manager he is, in terms of becoming much more complete. It is because this is what he's got. He knew there was not going to, they spent a lot in the summer, but there was a ceiling, and this is what he got, and this is what he had, and he had to make it work. And so that's exactly what he's done. And I think it's very, he always builds his teams also from the back. And the fact that he has played 4-2-4, 3-5-2, 3-4-3, 4-4-2. Look at these last 4 games, 4 1-0 wins in a row, clean sheets. Sorry, not 4-1 winners, but it's 4 clean sheets in a row. And that is the longest streak that Napoli have ever had in the Serie A. 4 clean sheets. And
also the fact
that he's in the history.
And also the fact that, Napoli actually now have the best defensive record in all of Europe's top 5 leagues, which I'm quite surprised to hear that, because I don't think they've got an amazing defensive record. They've conceded 25 goals, I believe, which is good, but it's not absolutely incredible. But it's the best defensive record in Europe's top 5 leagues, which is incredible. And they've got the most clean sheets as well. And he's done that this season with a lot of, Buongiorno's missed a lot of the season. Juan Jesus has played a lot of games. And then in this game, he puts Oliveira at left centre back, and he was outstanding actually in this game at left centre back. So he's got this record in defence with a lot of injuries. If we're honest. So and also the other thing I want to praise Conte for, that goal, that free kick goal, or they admitted it after the game. McTominay said it. That was on the training ground. That was designed on the training ground. That free kick goal. If you watch it, McTominay is standing on the ball with Raspadori. Then McTominay comes off the ball to leave it to Raspadori. He runs towards the wall, places himself right in line of where Raspadori is shooting the free kick. He's in the eye line of the goalkeeper. He blocks the view of the goalkeeper, and then he ducks when Raspadori strikes it. And so there's no chance for the goalkeeper. Yes, on paper, it's a goalkeeping error because for the same reason that I said the Declan Rice goal was a goalkeeping error. Because if you're defending if the wall is on one side and you should be saving the other side, you should be saving the other side. But the difference here is that this was right on the edge of the area, and his view was blocked by McTominay also ducking. That was on the training ground. That was made. They said it after the game that they've been working on that in the training ground. Well, that's on Conte. This is what we're talking about. This is the mark of a great manager, when you and the direct influence that a manager has through his great work on the training ground. They won this game because of that. So again, that's on Conte. And the players for executing it. But it's absolutely fantastic. But I do want to speak about Raspadori because he is the decisive man here, and he's a player who, for most of this season, Nima, didn't play much at all. He only really started to come in the team in the new year, playing a bit more in the new year once there was, like I said, the Kvara sale, the Neres injury. They had to go back to 2 up front. He started to get a bit more game time. Then he didn't play. Now he's back in. But also throughout his career, since joining Napoli under Spalletti as well, he's a player that's never been a first team player. He's always been a squad player or substitute. Is he now at the stage of his career, especially if Napoli go on to win this title, that does he need to leave Napoli at the end of the season?
I think he does. And I kind of been alluding to this in the last couple of weeks on the pod, that I think it's time for both for Napoli and for Raspadori to part ways, unless Napoli decide to permanently play in a 2-man attack, because that is the system that Raspadori has to play in, I think, in order to fully be able to express his talents. Or if he is to play in a team like he did at Sassuolo that was so attacking minded that he always had 2, 3, 4 players next to him up front when moving forward. I don't see Napoli doing that. I think Conte will continue, if he stays, of course, at Napoli. I think he will continue to adapt to the situation, and depending on where they, how well they, on the game itself, and if the situation requires it. But I do think that he needs to start. I do think he needs to play with continuity. I think he needs to play at the highest level with continuity, because I do think there's a wonderful player there. The fact that he scores important goals, let's remember, he's not exactly been known for his goal scoring prowess, but he does score important goals. He does score match-winning important goals to win Scudetti and to win important games. He did it during Spalletti against Juventus in what is now, essentially the match that clinched the Scudetto, you can say, away to Juve at the death, when he scores the winner there. And it's the same thing, this time again, and he scores a wonderful free kick. It's one thing to, like you said, off the training ground, they planned it and all of that, but to actually for him to get the ball there as well is that requires quality and skill, which I think he has. And I think when Inter and if Conte stays,
let me stop you there, because that's what I was going to ask. So if he does leave, where's the best fits for Raspadori? Because I mean, if we look at 2-man attacks, Inter play a 2-man attack. Juventus under Tudor sort of play a 2-man attack. It's a 2-1, but also a 1-2 in many ways. So Inter and Juventus, if Tudor stays, Inter or Juventus, Raspadori could do a pretty good job both of those clubs, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could. I think at Inter particularly, because the lack of options up front has been an issue that has plagued Inter all season. The lack of depth up front, and with Correa and Arnautovic contract expiring, even though Inter have a option to extend Arnautovic contract, I think most Interisti are praying that they don't do such a foolish thing. But both of them will leave. But there is also a player there named Davide Fratesi, who has all the traits that would suit perfectly at an Antonio Conte system in Napoli. And I think a swap between Fratesi and Raspadori would be beneficial from a financial point of view and a balance book. The finances in terms of the books for both clubs, as well as the players. Fratesi would excel under Conte at Napoli. Raspadori would do really, really well playing in a two-man attack for Inter under Inzaghi, where he would have a lot of
I'll
the
throw
ball.
another name as well. Roma play a two-man attack.
Yeah.
They need us an attacker as well.
They do.
You know, Inter will be signing attackers.
They will be.
Juventus will be signing attackers.
Yeah.
Roma will be signing attackers. These clubs need attackers, and Raspadori, if he's going to leave, I think he's somebody they should. I do think he's somebody you should look at.
Absolutely.
Whether he would want to go to Inter, knowing that Lautaro and Thuram are going to be first choice, that's the question. Whereas Roma, maybe Roma's the club that could offer him first team football. Maybe, you know, I think so. Maybe Roma could be a good fit. But I agree with you. I think that now, if he wants to fulfill, you know, even for the Italy national team, I think I think, look, win this Scudetto, two championships, fantastic. You've got the honours. Now go and make your career at another club. Let's move on to Inter now. Oh no, just before we move on to Inter, actually no, we'll come on to Graziano Finito after when we talk about Baggio of the week, because I thought those were really beautiful scenes. So we'll talk about that later. Let's move on to Inter. Before we talk about Barcelona, I want to be really quick on this because I don't think there's anything really much to talk about here at all. I tried to watch this game, but it was really hard. Inter played their entire reserves. They won 1-0. It's one of the worst games I've seen of the season. It was virtually unwatchable. They just done the job, Nima, right?
Yeah, there's not much to talk about. Inter didn't really. I mean, you could tell by the lineup. Bisek was the only player that started against Barcelona midweek. Everyone else, literally every single player other than that, was rotated. A few changes made to keep, you know, the Mkhitaryan and came on and so on. But I think the main talking point is Kristjan Asllani had a really good game. He for once he was able to take a chance when he was given it, and he scored a really good penalty as well, and that was Inter's first penalty in 13 match days, which Inter has been quite the talking point. But yeah, no, it wasn't much to talk about. There's not much to talk about at all. This was a game that was completely conditioned by the midweek fixture against Barcelona, and Inter won it. They kept the clean sheet, no injuries. It was very, very boring. Not much to talk about.
It was really, really boring. Actually, there was a few games this weekend that weren't really great in Serie A. I'll be honest with you. But let's talk about the game that does matter. Inter versus Barcelona, Champions League semi-final, second leg, Tuesday, 2100 CET at San Siro. I'm going to be saying this every week now because it annoys you. So 3-3 from the first leg in Barcelona. Let's go through, first of all, the situation with injuries, right? Because this is a tricky one. We'll start with Inter. The two big ones are Lautaro and Pavard. Lautaro got injured in the first leg, came off. I would have given him no chance, but now we're recording this on Monday morning, and we're seeing talk that he could be back. What do you make of it?
Basically, what's happening is that he's partially training with the squad today on Monday morning, and that's in order to see how his body reacts to that kind of training, and see how does the injury react. They don't want to make it worse, but he's doing. I just got to say, Lautaro Martinez is becoming. I was very, very, when he was appointed captain, I was a little bit. Is he captain's material? Not that I don't think he's a fantastic player and that Inter should put him at the center of the project. They absolutely should, and that was the correct decision. But to be a captain, I think you need other things. You need to identify with the club. You need to take leadership. You need to do what Zanetti used to do. You need to do what Del Piero did at Juve. You know what I mean? You have to embody the club and the culture at the club. Well, this season, there is no doubt that they made the right decision. Let's remember, Lautaro Martinez cut after Copa America last summer, cut his holiday short because Inter were struggling and starting the season with no attackers as they were all injured, a theme that's been recurring this entire season. He cut it short, he came back and started the preseason when he was not fit. he's done this pretty much the entire season, like sacrificing himself, and now he's really risking himself. I don't know, risking his health, and Inter are as well. I kind of understand why they're doing it. They want to see, because it's the most important game they've played in many years.
If he comes through this Monday session and then into Tuesday, do you risk him from the start, or do you put him on the bench and bring him on? But then it's a difficult one, because if you risk him from the start, he doesn't make it. Okay, you take him off. You've got someone to bring on. But then if you don't risk him from the start and then you bring him on, especially in an important time of the game, and then he gets injured, and then you've wasted a sub, or he might even be one of your last subs, then it's a difficult one. What do you do?
No. He's going to start. If he plays, he's going to start. I mean, of course, that's why they're doing this, because they want to see whether or not he can. They need him. He's showing incredible leadership. He's showing incredible sacrifice. He's really sacrificing himself for the sake of Inter here. And if they manage to pull it off, I'm more worried that this is a risk. Yes. I'm more worried that this could haunt him and Inter further down the line, and I don't want that. However, having said that, I completely understand why he's doing it and why Inter are allowing him to do it. Because again, this isn't just any old player. This is Inter's captain, and he's been unbelievable in the Serie A in the Champions League this season. I mean, the 8 goals that he scored. I mean, if we discard the last game against Barcelona, before that, he'd scored 7 of those 8 goals in his 5 latest starts in the Champions League. And so if Inter are to do something, they need Lautaro. They're going to call on him, and he needs to respond. And that is what he's doing now. He's responding to the call, and he's partially training. They're going to see today whether or not his body, how his body handles this training load. And if he can stay, and if so that he doesn't worsen the injury. But if there is a chance and they do it and they see that, okay, his body responded positively to this training load, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to start.
Okay, that's Lautaro.
However, he's not going to play 90 minutes. There's no doubt that he's not. I mean, he's definitely coming off at some point.
Okay, Pavard, what's the situation with him?
He's going to start. I think he's fully recovered, from what I understand.
Is he back in training? Is he back?
Yeah, he's back in training. Yeah. He's back in training. But he's got personalized training, but he's with the squad just like Lautaro, and he's responded far better. And it seems to me that there's no doubt that he's going to start. So Pavard he's going to be incredibly important. Pavard, I think, is going to be in terms of the defense, because Inter are going to need him because his experience, his defensive read of the game going forward, his aerial ability, his marking ability, his cutting out Barcelona passes,
his distribution as well.
His distribution. He's fundamental for Inter to tick. So Pavard is very, very important, and it seems like he, with 95% certainty, unless something happens during training today, as I said, we're recording this on Monday morning. Unless something dramatic happens, Pavard will start tomorrow.
Okay, well, that's great news. The only other selection question, because I think otherwise I'll go through the team. Di Marco or Augusto at left wing back. I mean, the fact that Di Marco was rested against, he came on against Verona, suggests that Di Marco is going to start, which, having seen him really get quite smoked by Yamal in that first leg, first of all, is he going to start? And secondly, is it a mistake to start him?
He's going to start. I think it's Simone Inzaghi has decided to die on this hill. It's this, and I don't understand it. I literally do not understand it. Carlos Augusto is defensively like levels better than Federico Di Marco, whether Federico Di Marco is in full fitness and in form or not. This isn't something new. This is something we've been saying for 3-4 years. Since the final. I mean, I remember us previewing the Champions League final against Man City, and I was talking about no, Di Marco. They need to worry about that because Di Marco holds off. They need to play someone else there, because he holds off too much, and he doesn't go tight on players because he's afraid of getting dribbled, which happens anyway, because when he stands off, he gives them time and space, and he needs Bastoni and Mkhitaryan to help him, which means that they're playing with 10.5 men at most defensively against Lamine Yamal. I mean, it's just, I don't understand this. This is a mental glitch that Inzaghi's got in his head. And I mean, I understand the reasoning behind it, because yes, Di Marco can play that diagonal ball. Absolutely. And Barcelona struggle with that. And we saw that in the first leg, that Inzaghi done his homework. When they play that diagonal ball, Barcelona, like most teams, struggle, but Barcelona do it particularly a lot because they play with such a high line that they don't have time to recover. That's true. But there's only one counter argument to that. Bastoni can play that ball just as well. You don't need to play Federico Di Marco. But he's decided that he's going to start Di Marco. He's going to die on this hill. Hopefully he doesn't. Inter and him don't die on this hill. But I don't understand why you would play with fire like this. Because, again, Carlos Augusto, you saw against Bayern Munich, he is the guy you go to. He defensively, when, you know, and also against Barcelona last week in the second leg, Inter had much more balance when Carlos Augusto was on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, Yamal dropped off. I mean, that might have also been a bit of tiredness from the Copa del Rey final, but he did drop off once Augusto came on. He wasn't anywhere near it. We'll come on to Yamal in a minute. I just want to go through Barcelona. So Barcelona, Koundé is definitely out. It seems from the latest reports that Balde is also pretty much definitely out. So that's both fullbacks out, which is a big plus for Inter, of course. But Lewandowski is back in training, and there's a chance he could. I think the word is he's very likely to play, but it's more likely at this stage it will be as a kind of a substitute last half an hour. But again, we'll have to see with that. We might be surprised. I'm very shocked that he's managed to get back this quickly with a hamstring. Hamstrings are usually you can't get back this quickly, but you know. Modern football and everything, the players seem to get back quickly. I think I've got to say, I think both of these teams, whether they're injured or not, unless they absolutely cannot play, the players will grind their teeth and get through this. It's too big of a game for anyone to not risk, like to not want to. Because exactly. I mean, what's the alternative? You don't play, you go out. And then your season's over. Well, I guess the season's not over for Barcelona. They're 4 points clear, and they've got Real Madrid in the Clásico. You know, so but yeah, generally we expect Barcelona to win the title, whatever.
And that's another thing. Don't Barcelona play Real Madrid this weekend? Like the following
they do.
weekend?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's also something that's really important here. That shouldn't be underestimated. Here is that Barcelona, yes, they're 4 points clear, but they're not going to be able to rotate too much against Real Madrid. They have to keep Real Madrid, because if Real Madrid win that, they're just 1 point behind them. And that reopens. But that's not
that doesn't really concern Inter. That concerns.
No, I'm talking about going into
Barcelona
this game
before they play Real Madrid. It's not going to affect the way Barcelona go into this game, is it?
Well, I think that there is it's a calculation, because they can't completely, like, he needs to remember that he's playing Real Madrid on the weekend. He can't just not just risk everything, and then he loses if he does, and then he loses 2-3 players, and he has to rely on essentially teenagers again against Real Madrid. It's not, he has to take that into the calculations here, and I think that's something that's good for Inter.
I think it would be better for Inter if they were playing Real Madrid the weekend, like they played Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey final, because that definitely. No,
I don't want them boosted mentally again.
Well, there's boosted mentally, but there's also, we saw in the first leg, Barcelona got tired in the last 20. Wasn't the same Barcelona in the last 20 minutes. I thought Inter finished the best. Inter looked the more likely team to score the fourth goal
as the game went on.
Barcelona, that incredible press and smothering you and suffocating you and not letting you out, even with the high line. We didn't see that in the second half, which naturally happens generally. You can't keep that up for 90 minutes, and not even with modern, even if Jurgen Klopp's your manager. Maybe if Jurgen Klopp's your manager, you can do it. But no more words said. We saw them fall off in the second half, and I think that was also because they played a Copa del Rey final, went to extra time. they played Real Valladolid at the weekend. They rested virtually their entire team as well, so they're going to be fresh going into this game. So I would expect a Barcelona team that will actually last longer in this game. They'll be able to play at a pace and an intensity that that will last longer than it did in the first leg, I think. So that's an added difficulty. But if we come back to the team news, we're looking at a team of Szczesny's going to play in goal, even though Ter Stegen came back. Flick's confirmed Szczesny will play in goal. We're probably looking at Garcia at right back. Gerard Martin won't play, not after he was horrible against Inter, and I don't think he's particularly very good. So I think that Inigo Martinez will probably go left back, which will mean Kubasi and Araujo that will go centre backs. I actually think Araujo is better than Inigo Martinez for this kind of game anyway. He's faster, especially with the high line. But anyway, that's the defence. And the midfield will be De Jong and Pedri will be the holders. Rafinha and Yamal on the wings. And then we're looking at Olmo or Fermin Lopez as the attacking midfield. It was Olmo in the first leg. We'd assume because Fermin played, I think, at the weekend, it will probably be Olmo. We're assuming based on that. And then up front, it will be Ferran or Lewandowski. If we're surprised with Lewandowski, which I wouldn't completely rule out.
No.
So, I mean, if we look at where this game is going to be won and lost, what the chances Inter have, I mean, it's quite obvious in terms of where they can get at Barcelona. We saw it in the first leg. We knew it before the first leg. The line is incredibly high. And we saw that there are certain patterns that work to get behind this Barcelona team. It worked for the first goal. Inzaghi's clever. Inter baited Barcelona players to smother them at the left back area of the pitch, They baited them in there, and then they switched it suddenly to the right, and
that's why he wants. That's why he wants Di Marco.
Yeah.
But the thing is, Bastoni can play that ball too, and that's my contention. Bastoni absolutely can play that ball.
I agree. The point I'm making is that this is where you get at Barcelona. You switch the play. There's acres of space on the, and I think that Barcelona also are not used to playing against teams wing back systems. No. Teams that have wing backs. You don't get. I can't think of hardly anyone. I don't know if anyone plays it in La Liga. They're not used to it, and I think they had trouble with that. And I think that's a weapon for Inter that Barcelona are not used to it, and these gaps are there. And I don't think that they'll change. Barcelona will have one way of playing. They'll play the same way. They'll play with that high line, and Inter can get in behind them. So I'm sure Inter will create chances in this game. I'm sure of it. Even if Lautaro doesn't play, I'm sure of it. It's whether they can keep him out the other way. So that's one. And then the other one is the set pieces. Look, it's a mismatch. It is a massive mismatch. Look at the difference in sizes between the two teams. Inter's a 6-foot monsters, brilliant in the air. Inter have scored the most goals in Serie A by a mile from set pieces and crosses and corners. They've scored the last two games of the Champions League. They've scored 4 goals off corners. It's insane.
Yeah.
So they have to, again, and they've got the 2 best deliverers of a corner in the world, in my opinion, in Çalhanoğlu and Di Marco. You won't find there's no one better at delivering a ball from corners than those two. So again, these are the 2 things they've got to take advantage of in this second leg.
100%. And above all, I want to see Barella, Çalhanoğlu and Mkhitaryan be able to absorb the pressure and dictate the play a little better than they did in the away game. I thought they were too out of sync. I think a main culprit because of that is the domino effect from playing a Federico Di Marco, which was essentially a training ground cone for Lamine Yamal to run around. And that was the frustration with that, because essentially playing with 10 men, that entire left-hand side is capitulated, and you have your midfield is unbalanced. But having said that, this is the San Siro, and the Curva Nord has said that their ticket price protest that they've been doing, staying quiet for the first 20 minutes, is over. Everyone, the San Siro needs to be a boiling cauldron, and that's key, because that is an advantage, that the San Siro can be an incredibly intimidating place. I know that Barcelona players are all fantastic players who are used to playing in a hostile environment, but that can help Inter players as well. It's Inter's home, it's San Siro, it's a European game at the San Siro. The San Siro needs to be on top of everything, on giving extra energy to Inter. It needs to become that cauldron that it can become when these games of this magnitude are played. And that's no small factor. The San Siro can carry Inter to the final if they're on it, and if Inter can respond. Because again, if we go into a game where the way that we're expecting it, and there's this much space, and Inter can attack the space with Denzel Dumfries and Marcus Thuram and score like they did in the first leg, that will the San Siro will just become like a spaceship and lift off into space, and it's a very difficult place for you to, as a opposing team. It's incredibly intimidating.
Yeah, it's an atmosphere that other Italian clubs generally don't have. Maybe Juventus a bit more since they changed the stadium, but
Napoli, Stadio Olimpico,
they're on top
Stadio
of you.
Olimpico.
Yeah,
Stadio Olimpico is in Naples as well. Like
but
But
those two stadiums, the crowd are further away from the pitch.
Yeah, they are.
So
they absolutely are. But I'm talking about the atmosphere generally. It can be an intimidating place, and you want to get the crowd with you. And Inter need to do that, and the crowd needs to do that.
For sure.
This to go, but it is. Let's not. I think for Barcelona are favorites. I think Inter are not the favorites, and I think it will, given where they are physically as well, it will take a miracle to go through.
We'll come on to predictions just at the end. If Inter are going to win this game and go through, there is one man that they have to stop, or one boy, let's say, that they have to stop. His name is Lamine Yamal, 17 years old. We saw what he did in the first leg. He was unbelievable. Is Lamine Yamal the best player in the world?
I think it's difficult to argue against that, because the level that he's playing at the age of 17 is insane. For me, I don't remember ever watching a 17-year-old that was this mature, that was this complete at 17. His decision making is flawless. His read of the game, the way that he tackles. I mean, from what I'm so impressed with the most is his ability to read the game in a defensive phase. When he tackles, when he does these slide tackle challenges to cut passing lanes and win the ball, that's something that they do. Cubarsí, Pedri, Lamine Yamal, they all do it. They invite the players to make a pass. I mean, if you remember, if you look at the Copa del Rey final, Cubarsí, before that first goal that Pedri scored, there's a brilliant shot of this that the producer of I want to tip my hat to him for showing this. Jude Bellingham is about to play a through ball to Vinicius Junior, I think. But you can see Cubarsí, he's looking at Jude Bellingham. He's waiting for him to play that pass. He's not pushing too up because he doesn't want to cut that passing lane. He's inviting and tricking him to making that pass. And as soon as that pass is played, he just slides in, wins the ball, plays it through to Yamal, and the rest, the goal is there. But, they score a fantastic goal. Pedri scores a fantastic goal. Lamine Yamal assists him. But this is what they do, and this is what Lamine Yamal does too. He's really, really good at doing this as well at 17. Going forward and individually, technically, we've seen what he is. He's an extraterrestrial. He's a Martian. He's unbelievable.
Those turns he does, those Zidane turns.
Yeah,
I mean, he does them for fun. He does about 5 or 6 per game. It's unbelievable. But I mean, as a 17-year-old,
yeah.
In my lifetime, I can't remember a player at 17. I know that if you ask me, this is not a great era of football, and it's we don't have many individual stars. I would say it's easier to look good in this era than it was 20 years ago or in 30 years ago in the 90s. But based on the fact that he's 17 years old, I haven't seen a 17-year-old in my lifetime perform at this level, win the trophies. I mean, got to remember, he won the the Euros with Spain as a key player, as a 16, 17-year-old last year. He could win the Champions League at 17 as their star player. He's got over 100 appearances for
at
Barcelona
17.
already at the age of 17, and over 50 goal contributions for Barcelona in those 100 games. But also, if you look at how everybody rates him, the players, that's telling as well. After that first leg, I mean, the Inter players and staff were absolutely raving on him. Inzaghi said he hasn't seen someone like him for almost a decade. Bastoni,
50 years. He said someone like Lamine Yamal is born every 50 years.
Yeah, Bastoni
said
went mad about him as well. I mean, when your fellow professionals are talking about you like that, it's a special player. It's not just us or fans that are saying it. It's the people that play against him. I mean, Inter were doubling up on him. I think Inzaghi said we needed to triple up on him. He's that good. And I think as a 17-year-old, I think there is an argument to say this is the best 17-year-old we've seen in football since Pele. Pele will always be number one for 17-year-olds because he did it at the World Cup. He destroyed the World Cup in 1958 in Sweden at the age of 17. And we saw what he did in the knockout stages, quarterfinals, semifinals, finals. He will always be number one. He won't surpass Pele. But since Pele, has there been a better 17-year-old?
I don't think there has. I don't think there has been. And again, for me, the thing that is the most impressive thing about Lamine Yamal is the maturity and how complete he is at 17. I've never seen a 17-year-old this complete, this mature, the finished product at this age. I've never seen it. And I'm so impressed. He has such a high natural football IQ, and he's so well drilled, and he's so great at executing these things all together at once. I've never seen anything like it.
He can do everything as well. Like, he can go inside, he can go outside, he can shoot. I mean, look at the goal he scored. He can hit the ball. He can curl the ball. He can cross it. He can pass. He can play the short game, the long game. Whatever scenario or situation he finds himself in, he's got the answer.
Yeah, because just these things, again, if you look at the Copa del Rey final, the way that he cuts in and plays these fantastic through balls as well, like he's some sort of a regista or something like that. I mean, he really does have everything. I couldn't tell you what his weaknesses are. I could tell you perhaps what he needs to improve, but I don't think he's got any discernible weaknesses.
Mentally as well, he said himself, he doesn't
he's fearless.
Feel pressure.
He's completely
you can
fearless.
see that. That was something that we saw with Mbappe as well when he was a teenage phenomenon. I remember watching Kylian Mbappe before the World Cup final in 2018 when the national anthems. I love watching players' faces and body language during national anthems because you can tell a lot by a player and how he's holding himself. And Mbappe was like he was in his living room. You get the same with Yamal. He just goes onto the pitch. Just the body language is so relaxed, but not in a lazy way. In a way of this is nothing to me. And that's why it's incredible. I mean, the only thing that really can stop him now is what stopped a few Barcelona phenomenons in recent years, and that is overplaying him.
Yeah,
it's a little bit concerning that at the age of 17, he's already played over 100 games for Barcelona, 20 odd games for Spain. I mean, that's a lot of games. That is gonna, by the time he's 25, 26, he carries on at this level. I mean, he's gonna burn out. And that's
what I'm worried about, the burnout. If you played over 100 professional games at the age of 17 at this level, I mean, I think burnout is what I'm worried about. And I think burnout generally is something that we're going to have to contend with because we're so used to players playing at such a high level and well into their 30s. I wonder if that might be coming to an end now because of the sheer number of too many games.
Yeah, which would be very sad. But then again, some would say, well, if you can have that career up until the age of 25, I mean, most people have that career from 25 to 30 something. So I mean, it goes both ways. But certainly shorter careers in that sense. Predictions, Nima. Come on, what are we thinking?
I'm not doing predictions.
You're not doing predictions. There we go. He says he's not superstitious.
I'm not doing predictions. No. I don't. It's not because of superstition. It's because I really don't know. I have no idea. Any way I try to look at this, any way I try to play this game in my head, any way I try to analyze this, there's so much unknown. There's so many factors that are unknown, and most of them are from Inter, and they are related to Inter players' fitness. Can Lautaro or how long can Lautaro start? Is he fit enough to start? What is his level? How much can he play? Because he's going to be substituted if he starts. How much can he give Inter in those minutes when he plays? Will it be like the first game away to Barcelona, where he pretty much injured himself in the first minute and was grinding his teeth for the entire half? Or is it in Lautaro that miraculously is able to, mind over matter and try and control the pain and control it and not injure himself too much and help Inter score? Where is Marcus Thuram's fitness? Denzel Dumfries, will they be able to capitalize like they did brilliantly away to Barcelona on that high line? And will Denzel Dumfries produce another unbelievable man of the match performance, scoring goals and assists and so on? Will there's so can Inter's midfield can Inter's midfield come back and somehow manage to control and absorb the pressure from Barcelona? There's so many things to discuss here that it's impossible for me to predict it.
Okay, my prediction. I think if Lautaro is fully fit, starts, I think Inter. I'm confident Inter can go through here. I think that they're a good matchup for Barcelona. I think that Barcelona's weaknesses and Inter's strengths favor Inter. Of course, it's going to be an incredibly tough tie. It's going to be incredibly tight. Yamal. Barcelona are amazing going forward. It's one of those games where details are going to be count, a bit of luck, and it's football at the end of the day. Football, it's always very hard to predict. But I do feel like if Lautaro is fit and he starts and he plays at a good level, I think Inter can do it. I really do. With the crowd behind them, I just feel, and I feel like they've got the experience. They've got extra experience over Barcelona. They've been here. Barcelona have got important players out in defence. That high line, when you've got a lot of players out in defence, and you have to play that really ultra aggressive, high risk, high rewards, high line. When you've got players out, it's difficult, you just So I think Inter can do it. I do. But I'm assuming that they're going to be at the physical level that we saw at Camp Nou, which we hadn't seen in the games before. I hope they don't return to those physical levels, because they're going to need that as well. So
they rested everyone. They rested everyone. They need to play out of their skin, because they're already spent, but they need to play out of their skin again. Everyone needs to be switched on for this to go through. There's no, there's no one cannot, like no one.
And don't defend too deep as well. That's the other thing I would have wanted to say before. In the first half, they defended a little bit too deep. The second half, they moved their defensive line just slightly further forward, and we also saw the difference because of that. So they need to make sure that defensive line is more like it was in the second half and not in the first. Because if you go too deep, it's just too much. It's just overwhelming.
You can't give them too much space. You really can't give them too much space and time on the ball. They will hurt you. But we need. I mean, I'm so happy if Pavard starts. It'll be monumentally important, because he's so important defensively. And next to Acerbi and Bastoni, they really are defensively in the Champions League this season. They've been outstanding.
Let's go back to Serie A then. So very quickly, first of all, Atalanta, who relegates Monza with a 4-0 thrashing of them. I think this, we can say for sure now, this clinches a top 4 position now for Atalanta pretty much. I mean, they do have Roma. They
I
do
got to
have
be
Roma
honest.
this weekend, so they've got
Yeah,
to be a little bit careful there. But as long as they avoid defeat there, I mean, I think they've got enough of a gap now to with the other teams also having tough head-to-heads against each other. I think they're all right now. But anyway, De Ketelaere back, 2 goals. His first goals of 2025 in Serie A. Lookman scores finally again. First goal in 8 matches. Retegui also, I thought, played well despite not scoring. He showed he got an assist. He showed his all-round game as well. So yeah, very positive for Atalanta. But it's all over for Monza. They're relegated in what's been a disastrous season.
it is. It's been an absolutely horrible season for Monza, and they're out. And now one wonders if they become completely irrelevant now. What happens to them in the future? Do they have? Does Galliani have the ear of the remaining members of the Berlusconi family enough to invest and bring his Monza back to Serie A? I'm not so sure. I think that was Silvio's project, and with Silvio gone, I don't see that happening.
Is this the beginning of the end of Monza? Do you think?
I think, as we know it, yes. I think I think yeah. I don't see them returning. We'll see what happens, but I don't think the remaining Berlusconi family members are that interested in Monza.
If you have a look also, Nima, at the number of players that are out of contract this season from
That's
Monza.
another thing.
I haven't checked it for a while, but I remember checking a few months ago, and it was something about like 70% of the squad were out of contract. It was, and then they had a few loan players as well. Like, yeah, you do fear for them. What will their team and squad look like next season? And like you said, what are the intentions? But Atalanta, I mean, there's not too much. I don't think too much else to say about Atalanta. We maybe might bring them more into if they were to lose to Roma next week or this weekend, maybe we'll bring them more into the discussion. But I want to focus on the crazy race for 4th place, because this is absolutely insane. So let me read this out for you. So Roma, 63 points. Juventus, 63 points. Lazio, 63 points. Bologna, 62 points. Fiorentina, 59 points. So that's the situation in the race for the 4th place, the final Champions League place. Now, let me read through the fixture list. So Roma play Atalanta away, Milan at home, Torino away. Lazio play Juventus at home, Inter away, Lecce at home. Juventus play Lazio at home. No, Lazio away, Udinese at home, Venezia away. Bologna play Milan away, Fiorentina away, Genoa at home. And Fiorentina play Venezia away, Bologna at home, Udinese away. So I want to do some predictions now, Nima. Simple question. Who is going to get 4th place?
That it's impossible, isn't it? I mean, I had said Lazio, and I still think that I don't want to discount them. I think that win against Empoli was fundamentally important. Now they play, like you said, they've got Inter left. It's
They've got Juventus at home this weekend.
Yeah, they got Juventus at home this weekend, and then they got Inter, and then they got Lecce. I think the Lecce game, I think by then Lecce will know their future. But it's the Juventus game is monumental. And then you look at Juve, I think if they survive Lazio, and avoid defeat there, I think the other 2 games they should be fine. But then you look at Roma and their run, and they're right in it as well. It's literally impossible. But I'd still want to say that I think Juventus and Atalanta will manage this. I think 3rd and 4th are Atalanta and Juve. And who comes 5th, 6th, and 7th, I could not tell you even if I tried. But I think Juve and Atalanta got this now.
I think, let me say this. I'm ruling out Fiorentina. Fiorentina on 51 points. They're 4 points behind. That's too much to make up in 3 games. So I'm writing off Fiorentina. So then it's four teams playing for 1 spot, right? I'm going to rule out Bologna. They're only 1 point behind, but I think it's significant that they're 1 point behind 3 teams, because it means that they need 3 teams to all kind of slip up. You would think, based on probability, that at least one of Roma, Juventus, or Lazio will have an almost, will have an almost perfect end to the season, because they'll just go on a little bit of a run. Usually, I mean, they might all keep slipping up. It's very possible, especially as Juventus are playing Lazio and Roma are playing. Roma have got a difficult run. It could happen. But I'm saying the probability is that at least one of them will go on a little bit of a run. And also remember that Bologna have a tough run in, and they have the Coppa Italia final.
The Coppa Italia final is fundamentally
as well. So I'm going to discount Bologna. So therefore, in my eyes, it's between Roma, Juventus, and Lazio. Now, at this moment, I actually favour Roma. And the reason why is Roma play Milan at home 4 days after Milan are playing the Coppa Italia final. Milan are going to be dead. They're going to have nothing to play for in the league. I think they win that game. They then play Torino away last game of the season. Torino have nothing to play for at all in that game. So they'll win that. So I'm confident Roma have got 6 points in the bag here. Then it comes down to this Atalanta game away. That is the key one. That is the key game for Roma. If they win that, I think if Roma beat Atalanta this weekend, Roma have got it. It's in the bag. 100%. I would almost go and say, I think they've got it if they beat Atalanta. But obviously, it's a very simple, because Atalanta still need to get a result, because if Atalanta lose that, they could be dragged back in to the top four race. So that's going to be very, very difficult. But I think even if Roma get a draw at Atalanta, I would be confident I would be confident that at the very least they will finish the season level on points with at least Juventus, maybe Lazio as well. Because if I come down to Juventus, do I see Juventus winning at Lazio? We're going to come on to Juventus in a minute in their game against Bologna. Do I see a Juventus team are completely decimated? They've got so many injuries. They're not playing particularly well. Winning away at home against Lazio, maybe. Away at Lazio? I think realistically, we're probably looking at Juventus are probably coming out of that game probably happy if they get a draw at Lazio. So that means they've dropped points. So that means if Roma get a draw against Atalanta, then they're at the end of the season they're level. Then I think it will go. They've got the same head-to-head, and I think it will go down to goal difference. But then Lazio will have got a draw. They'll all be level on points. If Lazio were to win their last two games, then I mean obviously they've got Inter away, which is very difficult to win away at Inter. But we have to see how seriously Inter take that if they're in the Champions League final. If they're already out of the Scudetto race, they're tired Inter maybe. So there's a lot of ifs and buts. I put it this way to cop out. I think we're going to know after this weekend. I'll be confident after this weekend making a prediction of who I think will finish fourth. I think this weekend will decide pretty much everything. The one thing I want to add though, Nima, is if teams finish level, it goes to head-to-head. Now, Roma have got the same head-to-head as Juventus. So if they were to finish level on points with Juventus, then I think it will go down to goal difference. At the moment, I think Juventus have got a +2 goal difference better than Roma, which is an advantage to Juventus in the fact that I don't think Roma don't score too many goals. I think they've got about one goal scored in the last 8 games. And Lazio, Roma have got the better head-to-head. If it's 3 teams level, then it goes on to a 3-way head-to-head. And that's where Roma have the advantage, because Roma have played all 4 matches against Juventus and Lazio. And they have 6 points from the 4 matches. Win, draw against Lazio, draw against Juventus, and they have a +2 goal difference from that. Juventus have 5 points but they've still got to play Lazio. They've won against Lazio in the first game, and they've drawn against Roma. Lazio cannot win a 3-way head-to-head. They've got 1 point from 3 matches. So even if they were to beat Lazio, they'll be on 4 points. So Lazio are out if that goes to a 3-way head-to-head, which is another disadvantage for Lazio, because it is possible actually they could all finish level on points. Juventus have to beat Lazio to win the 3-way head-to-head. If Juventus draw with Lazio, they lose the 3-way head-to-head because Juventus have a +1 goal difference. Roma have a +2 goal difference. If they draw, that stays at a +1 goal difference, which means Roma win the 3-way head-to-head, if that makes sense. So Roma have the advantages on the head-to-head, either single head-to-heads or 3-way head-to-heads. Roma have the advantage there. So I actually, at this moment, Also, if you look at the form, I mean, Roma haven't lost this year. Roma are playing better than Juventus and Lazio. At this moment, I favour Roma. I do, but at the end of this weekend, I can tell you for sure.
I still think that Roma. I think Roma have done something remarkable, and it's unbelievable. And if he pulls it off, Ranieri, I think that makes him the Serie A coach of the year, because they were literally in a relegation battle when he took over. It was insane, and the fact that he's gone there and he finishes top 4 with them is truly, truly unbelievable. But I don't think he'll pull it off. I think Juve will beat Lazio, or at minimum get a draw there. And I think Juve with Udinese and Venezia left, I think they will just see that off. I favor Juve, and I don't see Atalanta losing to Roma either. I think that's when that's why I'm saying I think Roma, Juve, and Atalanta will see this through. I don't see Atalanta losing to Roma, and I honestly think that Lazio won't be able to handle Juve, who look much more stable since Tudor took over. Everything looks calmer at Juve.
Let's talk about Juventus against Bologna. They draw 1-1, which I think personally, given the injury situation, I think is a decent result for Juventus. Okay, given Roma and Lazio won, Juventus really probably needed to win this game. But so there's some mixed feelings there. But I think given that the injury situation, and we have to talk about this again, Juventus are decimated. They only had 2 fit centre-backs in this game. They then lost Cambiasso to injury, a muscle injury. He's probably going to be out. Well, if it's a muscle injury, that's season gone, season done for Cambiasso now. As well. Look at the bench. Look at Juventus's bench for this game against Bologna. Is insane, some of the names. I'm just going to say it. They need to replace that entire medical team. There needs to be mass changes in the medical department at Juventus, because this is unacceptable. The number of injuries they've had this season. 2 ACLs to Bremer and Cabal. The injuries in defence, in particular this season, has just been just ridiculous. We saw around October, November time where Juventus were fielding 1 or 2 outfielders for about a few weeks. For about 3 or 4 weeks, Juventus had about 1 or 2 outfielders on the bench through that period. Then we're at the business end of the season now, and they go into a game with only 2 centre backs and barely able to put out a bench, and with so many players missing. It's completely unacceptable. Douglas Luiz gave an interview last week. Douglas Luiz is somebody that's been injured for most of the season as well. He gave an interview quite damning where he basically blamed Juventus's medical department for his injury.
Wasn't it on social media when he went off on one as well? Where I read on Instagram in a reply.
That's what I'm referring to. You're right. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
He went off on one.
That's what I'm referring to. He basically outright blamed the Juventus medical department. He basically said, well, why am I getting injuries?
I've never been injured before.
I've never been injured before. All of a sudden I get injuries. So is it my fault, or is it, I didn't just come here to take photographs, So I remember saying this in an episode here in about November, December, that I'd spoken to people, and there was criticism of the methods of the way that they were training. A lot of that was put on Thiago Motta from the source that I got it from. It was placed on Thiago Motta, saying that he's come here training the players as if they're playing once a week when they're playing 2 games a week. So we can say that maybe it was a bit Motta, and that's the damage is done. But this is something that also predated Motta. This was happening in Allegri. There was too many injuries in Allegri. I remember one season with Allegri where he could barely put out a bench for a couple of months. I think it was the second season. When everything went to shit on and off the pitch. But I remember the medical department was a mess that season as well. So the Juventus need to. This is just unacceptable. It's unacceptable. They had half a team playing against, but they had half a first team playing against Bologna. So I actually think in the circumstances, it's a good result. But the bigger picture is just there needs to be mass changes. This is not acceptable.
No, it's been going on long enough. Players that have never been injured before are now injured. There's not really much more to add, to be honest. to that, but I do feel that Juve under Tudor, since Tudor took over, there's a calm around Juve that hasn't been there at all season. I feel that Juve are much more in a like a calmer place. Yes, they've got a lot to play for in the top four, and it would be a disaster, but there is this kind of sensation around Juventus and everything they do, that the panic and the anger and the chaos is somewhat subsided, and it's not there anymore. And I think that's really important for Juve, that they can end the season on some kind of, high is maybe not the right word, but some sort of closure after what has been a very disastrous and tumultuous season.
Yeah, well, that's only going to happen if they get the top four, and of course, it's all up
I
for
think they
grabs
will.
now.
I think I can't see them not winning. Like, I really can't see them against Udinese and Venezia dropping points. And I think for me, the biggest banana skin, if I'm perfectly honest with you, is the Udinese game. But I still can't see Udinese causing them any problems. And where Lazio are as well,
Well,
they
Udinese
struggle.
nothing to play for. I think Venezia
but
away. Venezia are playing for
Lazio.
survival in the last day of the
Well,
season.
I think by then it'll be. I'm not. I think by then it'll be over. I don't think Venezia will be in a. Unfortunately, I don't expect to see a relegation battle to the death. Unfortunately.
Well, listen. At the end of the day, they need to get a result against Lazio. They maybe need to win that game, but they need to at least draw it. If they lose to Lazio, it's all over for Juventus. That's it. It's game over. They're gone. They're done. So yeah, it's going to be a big weekend. The one positive for Juventus in this game, which is what I want to talk about, is Khephren Thuram, who scored the opener. It was a goalkeeping mistake, but he had another great performance. All action from many bad signings from last summer. We can say that Khephren Thuram has been the one really big success from the transfer market of Giuntoli last summer. I think he's had a fantastic first season from where he is in his career at his age. First big move to a big league. He's been outstanding. He's gone from strength to strength, and he's really become the main man for Juventus in dragging this team, in leading this team, in driving this team forward in games. He's become, even he scored 5 goals this season now, which is decent for his position. If all the midfielders were contributing 5 goals each, it wouldn't be a problem. So he's done his part there, but he's becoming a very complete midfielder. He's becoming a bit of a Patrick Vieira. I'm not saying he's at that level, of course. And Patrick Vieira at Arsenal was insane. But he's been fantastic. And when you see what Marcus Thuram is doing at Inter, we're talking about this Thuram. I was discussing this the other day. We're talking about this Thuram dynasty now with Lilian Thuram, the father, one of the greatest defenders in the history of the game, and now Marcus Thuram and Khephren Thuram. I mean, I don't think there can be a better footballing family right now in football, to be honest with you. I mean, I think the Maldini clan, Cesare Paolo, obviously Cesare is no longer with us, but Daniel maybe drags that down a little bit. But I mean, but for a family where all the players are on a really top level, in the history of football, there can't be many better than Lilian, Marcus, Khephren in terms of all being on that incredible level. I don't think there can be.
No. I struggle to think of anyone off the top of my head. I'll have to do a bit of digging to see if I can find something. But I think in terms of performances on the pitch, I think you might be right. But it's also
who has the highest ceiling? Who has the highest ceiling between Marcus Thuram and Khephren Thuram?
It's difficult given that they play in such different positions. But I always feel that I think they both have the talent they possess is that they can be complete. I think in midfield, Khephren is complete. If he can express and fully express that talent, he'll be a complete midfielder. Marcus as well. If he can learn to be more clinical, if he can learn to put away more chances and score consistently over a season, I think he's a complete striker. Technically, he's unbelievable. He's fast as hell. He's great one-on-one. He's good aerially, good shot. he can hold up the play, he can put others into position. It's the finishing that lets him down a little bit. If he can work on that and become more clinical, which he started this season as doing that, and he did it also before at Borussia Mönchengladbach in his last season. There started really well, but then fell off. If he can address that, then we're talking a 30-35 goal a season player. That makes him complete. And Khephren Thuram, as you said, he's not at Vieira's level, but he's giving those kind of vibes in the sense that, you know, he can become that. I think that's what's so interesting about them, is that they both have the natural talent they've got, and is that they're pretty complete. They're not, you know, they have the ability or the potential to become really complete in both of their roles. And I put that down to Lilian. Lilian's got those boys in check. The way that he has raised them, the way that he has instilled a work ethic in them, the way that he's got them prepared, and they don't fly off into space and think they're superstars or anything like that. They're very easygoing lads. I mean, Marcus just jokes, he's a big smile, isn't he? And Khephren as well. Like, they're very easygoing lads, but he's instilled a work ethic and manners in them that I think you need to have. And given that Thuram was one of the best players, one of the best defenders in European football history, he knows what it takes to be at that level.
Yeah.
And so he knows how to instill that work ethic in them. And, you know, so I think you might be onto something there about the football family in terms of quality on the pitch.
Yeah, well said. I think that, look, right now, if we're talking, you know, Marcus is at a higher level because he's proven himself at the highest level, Champions League, winning the Scudetto, you know, and, you know, Khephren, but, you know, Marcus is going to be 28 in a few months. Khephren is 24, you know, at this moment. Yeah, Marcus is at a high level. He's more proven. Who was better at the age of 24 when Marcus was 24? I'd probably say Khephren.
Yeah, I agree.
I would say Khephren, because Marcus was still at Borussia Mönchengladbach. He joined Inter at 26. He was very good at Gladbach, but it was the German league. When he came to Inter, he exploded at 26. So I think Khephren's probably a little bit further in his development than Marcus was. So that's where, you know, we have to see whether Khephren can now move on to the level that Marcus has, but also perform at that level. I mean, Juventus will have to get in the Champions League first for that to happen. But also, you know, we're talking about France. I mean, to be fair, Marcus has never really done that well for France. That's actually one area of weakness. I think he's only scored 2 goals in about 28 games, if I remember rightly, for the France national team. So that's one area he needs to improve. But, you know,
well, he's not the main man. I mean, his role at France is what Benzema's role at Real Madrid was when Ronaldo was there. That's Marcus Thuram's role at France. He is to Kylian Mbappe what Benzema was to Cristiano Ronaldo at Real Madrid. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
So he's
still not enough though. But yeah, anyway, let's move on to just quickly on Bologna. Like as we said before, I think it will be. You know, they're still there. Italiano said they're still there. I think they probably needed to win this game. I think it is a better result for Juventus than it is for Bologna. I do want to praise Kumi though. I thought he was outstanding.
I just want to say something here about Italiano and Bologna. They've had a fantastic season. There's no doubt about that. But there is a feeling that once again, Vincenzo Italiano could end with nothing to show for it. They could miss out on Europe altogether. If they lose, they could, you know, if they lose the Coppa Italia final, there's a real risk they don't even finish in European spots, which I think would be horrible. Not just the Champions League, which they've been in the situation for. I worry about them because again, it would kind of be like we saw with Fiorentina as well. The years he was there, 3 finals, but nothing to show for it. It's this kind of reaching and falling on the finish line kind of sensation that we've seen with Italiano. I'm you know, I don't know what's going to happen, but I really fancy Milan winning the Coppa Italia. That is what Milan is they need that trophy. and I think I sincerely doubt that Bologna can focus enough resources and attention mentally and qualitatively to be able to finish and compete all the way for a top 4 and win the Coppa
Well,
Italia.
Bologna play Milan 3 days before the Coppa Italia final, so that will be interesting to see.
I mean, if anyone thinks that Milan is going to turn up to that game with anything else other than their heavily rotated team,
well, that's where it's interesting, because it'll be interesting to see whether Bologna rotate or whether they play a strong team. So that is going to be interesting. Roma Fiorentina, quickly, because we've discussed the top four race. So I don't want to discuss these games for ages. But Roma do it again. They didn't deserve to win this game, in my opinion. Fiorentina deserved at least a draw, but Roma can thank Svila again. Monster. He made a massive save from Moise Kean at 0-0. He made another massive save from him at 1-0. I think there's no doubt now he's the goalkeeper of the season. I think it's confirmed now. He's the goalkeeper at Serie A, goalkeeper of the season. He won them this game. Simple as that. And then Dovbyk, he gets the goal just before half time.
It was a lovely goal too, wasn't it?
It was. I did like Palladino going ballistic, taking the stopwatch off the fourth official and pointing and saying, "Look, it's over 4 minutes. Why are we still playing?" I did like that. I felt a little bit sorry for Fiorentina in that, but I did feel sorry for Fiorentina because they did not deserve to lose this game. I thought they played more. They were more than equal to Roma, and they were unlucky. They deserved a draw.
1-0 win under Ranieri in the Serie A by Roma.
Not just that, the last 8 games, they've scored exactly 1 goal. They've drawn 1 6 and drawn 2 of those games. So it's they're not scoring a lot at the moment, but they're I think their level has dropped a little bit though, which is an interesting one ahead of the Atalanta game. But they're getting the results. I mean, still unbeaten in 2025. We're now in May. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Stat went out actually at the table since Ranieri took over, and Roma are top of the table. I think by like about 5 points clear. Or something.
It's crazy. It's a crazy turnaround.
Yeah, it really is. As for Fiorentina, it's all about the Real Betis game. So let's just quickly discuss that. They lost the first leg 2-1. Again, probably in that game, maybe deserved a draw in that. A little bit unlucky. Do you think they can turn that round and win that?
I really hope so. The Chelsea are waiting. It's going to be a small chance for them when they play Chelsea in a one-off game, but it is a one-off game. And here, I think Fiorentina. I look at them and the brain says no, they're not going to, but my heart says they're still. If Palladino has a golden opportunity here to show his mettle. These are the things that can build coaching careers. See off Betis and get to the final and perform a miracle against Chelsea, then the career trajectory is different. And I do think that qualitatively, I don't see Fiorentina that far away from neither Betis or Chelsea.
I think they're the equal of Betis. And if you watch the game, how they played. When I'm talking about the actual game itself, not chances, but game, they're the equal, at least the equal of Betis for me.
Yeah. So they are there for the taking.
I think, I think it's going to be tight again. It's going to be another, it could go extra time. It's possible it could go extra time. They need to they need to take the lead, get the crowd behind them, and then, cut out stupid defensive errors that they made against Betis in the first game. I mean, that first goal was just Comuzzo. Don't want to be too hard on him. He's young, but you can't defend like that. That's really naive defending. Sort of like getting too tight, committing yourself, getting rolled by Bakumbu, out-strengthed, and they almost got away with it as well. It was nearly the miss of the season for that first goal from Betis. But I hope they can do it as well. Lazio, as we said, very, very big win. I didn't think they played very well in this game. They were playing against 10 men for all of the until Hizai got sent off as well. But for Colombo got really stupid red card from Colombo. Really stupid. Bit harsh, but still stupid for him to go in for that challenge. They're 1-0 up. Empoli actually equalised, but it was disallowed for a very tight offside. And Empoli were actually the better team for a while, without creating loads. But Lazio got the win, and that was the key thing. But yeah, Lazio's form definitely has, their performance levels definitely have
dropped,
dipped a lot in the last 2 months. A lot. In fact, the only game they really played well in, I think, in that period was probably the second leg against Bodo Glimt, where they battered them and somehow still went out. But yeah, that's Lazio. The rest of the weekend fixtures: Torino 1, Venezia 1, Cagliari 1, Udinese 2, Parma 0, Como 1. Como on great form. So the fight at the bottom still goes on. We'll talk about the relegation race next week, because we're going on a bit now. Let's finish off with Baggio, Premface, and Serie ASS of the week. So Baggio, I've got two emotional ones. First of all, the beautiful pre-match scenes at Lecce versus Napoli in honor of Graziano Fiorita, who was of course the physiotherapist who tragically died not last week, the week before, which caused also a lot of controversy over the disallowed the postponed match between Lecce and Fiorentina, Lecce and Atalanta, wasn't it? But yeah, before the game, they brought out lots of flowers. They had a minute's silence. They all huddled around the two sets of teams and squads in a circle around the touchline where of course Fiorita is, and they had it was beautiful, I thought.
Yeah, and it was very beautiful. It's very moving, and it was very respectful.
And also the same I thought was very moving was the Roma reception before Roma's game against Fiorentina for Edoardo Bove, of course, former Roma player at Fiorentina, and he was very moved himself, wasn't he? It was moving is the word for sure. Premface of the week, right? We've got a few, but I'm going to start off with this is just fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. Todd Boehly, right? Who, of course, Todd Boehly is the Chelsea owner. Now, Todd Boehly, everybody knows, is a massive Premface. I mean, I don't even know if Premface is the right word. What's the American equivalent of Premface? I don't know.
I think someone one of our patrons called him a yanker or something like that. I don't know.
Donut of the week, maybe. I don't know. But what a Premface, Todd Boehly. So now this is a guy, Todd Boehly, who, as the owner, the face of Chelsea, has spent over €1 billion in 2 summers since taking over at Chelsea. He's gone through 6 managers, only to finish 12th in his first season, 6th in his second season, and again this season Chelsea, way off in the league in terms of challenging for the title or the top of the table. He's an American investor who he knows nothing about football. He probably doesn't even like the game. He clearly doesn't like the game. And the proof of that is that Ruud Gullit told an amazing story. He did an interview on the Overlap podcast. It was a great interview about Ruud Gullit, talking about his career, talked a lot about his time at Milan, and some fantastic stories. But the best story of all was how he went to this function at Chelsea, and Todd Boehly was there. So Ruud Gullit went over and introduced himself to Todd Boehly. And I'm going to read out what he said. He goes, "I met the Chelsea owner, Todd Boehly. Introduced myself. Hi, I'm Ruud Gullit. Todd said, 'What do you do?'" Ruud Gullit says, "Well, I played football. I also played for and coached Chelsea." And Todd said, "Oh yeah, when did you play for Chelsea? What did you do for Chelsea?" And so Todd Boehly did not know who Ruud Gullit is. Ruud Gullit, we're talking about one of the greatest players in the history of football. He's a Ballon d'Or winner. He's a star of the legendary AC Milan team under Arrigo Sacchi. Talking about arguably the greatest club team there's ever been. And he was a star, one of the stars of that team. We're talking about the star and captain of that legendary Holland team that won Euro '88. We're talking about, for for Chelsea, a former Chelsea player and manager. He was there for a few years. He won the FA Cup there. One of the most complete and, let's not forget, iconic footballers with his dreadlocks. This is somebody that, everybody, even people that don't know football, should know who he is. And this is the owner of Chelsea, and he doesn't know who Ruud Gullit is. Can you be more of a Premface than that?
So to me, it's like, how does he not have an assistant who briefs him on the guests? Before, I understand that, having grown up where he did, and he's an investor, you can't expect him to know a sport that he probably was introduced to maybe in the last 10 years, right? I get that. And so the history of it, he doesn't know. But how do you not have, like, going into this function, an assistant who goes through the guest list and says, this person is going to be there. His name is Ruud Gullit. This is what he's done at the club. This is his history. That person's going to be there. So that when the person in question comes to you and says, my name's Ruud Gullit, something in the back of your mind should go, oh yeah, that's that guy. And not go, oh, when did you play for Chelsea? What did you do? It's embarrassing. But I think
that when he took over Chelsea, Nima, and became like the owner, the face of Chelsea, you would think that he would do a little bit of, studying. At least learn who your former managers are, right?
No, but listen, isn't that long ago. This is what I mean. How does he not have an assistant to put together a small little file for him to read, where, unlike, going into this function, or who the guest lists are, and who the most important people are, and what does this guy do, and who is that? How do you not have that? That's just like that to me. That should be there. And it's like, and given that it is him, and we know that he's been in Twitter spaces listening to Chelsea fans rant, and I saw some reports saying that one Chelsea space, someone had said was ranting about a player, and then next thing you know, Chelsea go and buy that player. I don't know how true that is, but it would be very, very par for the course for
I've heard some amazing stories.
Todd Lasso, as I call him. I mean, he's complete. He's like a meme, isn't he? It's just it's like, how do you make him any more of a comedy act than he already is?
And doesn't he really sum up modern football as well? That these people don't have a clue about football. You've got Todd Boehly, who and I was told that Todd Boehly, when he took over Chelsea, that he thought that after the acquisition, he thought that everybody in the Premier League just automatically qualified for the Champions League. He didn't know that you actually had to qualify. So there he is, Chelsea have finished 12, and then all of a sudden Todd Boehly's surprised. Oh my God, we're not in the Champions League. We're going to lose all this money.
But that's another thing. Like, from what I understand, it's not his money. He's put together a consortium, with lots of sports stars and investors. And I'm thinking, how do they not have anyone there who knows the game, who can advise this guy? Like, it's so,
But it doesn't do something modern football that we're getting. These are the people that are running football clubs now that literally don't know anything about football. I mean, honestly, wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't even know what the offside rule is. I'm being serious. It would not surprise me if Todd Boehly doesn't know what the offside rule is. If he doesn't know who Ruud Gullit is, then I think there's a good possibility he doesn't know what the offside rule is. But it sums up modern football, doesn't it? I mean, some of these owners, they don't like football. They haven't got a clue about football. I mean, you've got Cardinale at Milan who bases his whole project around a baseball movie. You've got Todd Boehly doesn't know who Ruud Gullit is. I mean, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. It really is. But he's not the only Premface of the week, Nima. We also had Rio Ferdinand talking about Rafinha. I'll be honest with you, I like Rio Ferdinand. I actually think he's quite respectful. He shows respect for European football, usually, including Italian football. He does usually show respect, and he's quite down to earth. That's just my, from my experiences with him. And I know he gets a lot of stick, but this was a bit of a this was Premfacery. So he said on Rafinha, the Barcelona player, he says, makes you wonder why he was allowed to leave the Premier League. I mean, this is a player who was playing for Leeds United when he joined Barcelona, and he joined Barcelona. So why was he allowed to leave Leeds, Nima, to join Barcelona?
Allowed. Yeah. Like, what do you mean allowed? Like it's a weird choice of words. But
and the other one, oh God, this is one thing that Serie A will always have over other leagues, especially the Premier League. I mean, it was only a few weeks ago we had that incredible choreography in the tifos for the Rome derby. It was just, we did a whole segment on it. It was unbelievable. Arsenal are playing against PSG in the Champions League semi-final. You know, this is their biggest game for how many years? When was the last time Arsenal were in the semi-final of the Champions League? It's, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe, something like that. And massive game. So they want to put on a big show before the game. Did you see, Nima? Did you see the tifo?
Well, it wasn't a tifo. It was just a giant banner blocking the view of certain. Like there was nothing, just a giant flag. Like that's all it was.
The giant flag of the cannon, the Arsenal logo.
That's all it was. In the Champions League semi-final first leg at home. I don't understand what they were thinking. Like, what was that? Like, I don't know. It was really, really bad. It was so bad. And I know Arsenal fans were upset with it too.
Yeah, even to be fair to them, I mean, we make fun in Italy because, you know, us Italians, when it comes to, you know, art and beauty and imagination and all those kind of things, you know, we're on a completely another level to most other countries, and certainly to the kind of Anglo-Saxon countries who don't really have that in them. That's not their culture. They're not skilled in those kind of things. But this was another level. I mean, this was unbelievable. It really was. Before a Champions League semi-final, it really did make me laugh a lot, I have to say. Serie A of the week?
Yes, Giampiero Gasperini. He is genuinely, when people say, why doesn't he coach a big club? Well, here's another example. This isn't, you know, not in the past, he's disregarding the big players he's had fallouts with for no reason. The fact that we've had stories from Mele and Højlund talking about how he wants to control them, and he didn't like them driving together to the training ground. He didn't want them to drive together for reasons that only Giampiero Gasperini understands. I think the word used was dictator. But regardless, and not just throwing paninis and bread at fans from his car, as he's done in the past. On the weekend when he beat Monza 4-0, after the post-match press conference, he gets into almost a fist fight with a journalist outside the press room, and they start hurling abuse at each other, and they're in each other's faces. And he calls Gasperini calls the journalist a donkey. The donkey calls him a dickhead, and then Gasperini throws a water bottle at the ground and a notebook at the journalist. People have to get involved and stop it. I mean, it's just, this is why he like, I don't know what to say. I mean, this is Giampiero Gasperini. You can't have him at a big club. This is not how can you just imagine him doing this kind of nonsense at a Juve or a Milan or an Inter, and then people want him at Roma, like in that cauldron that is Roma, with all the million radio stations that constantly criticize you. It's
Marco Violi.
Yeah, it's going to completely deteriorate, and you know, it's a shame because
It'll be quite funny though.
Well, yeah, but this is Gasperini in a nutshell.
Always. Okay. I've got one other Serie A of the week, and the Serie A official channel, who did an interview with Alessio Zerbin, who they marketed promoted the interview and headlined the interview as Italy's great young talent.
He's 26.
I mean, first of all, he's 26. I mean, I know in Italy we take the piss in Italy that you're young until you're, you know. I mean, in Italy, a lot of Italians stay at home with their mums until they're 40. but you know, calling Zerbin a youngster at 26, but also, would you call him a talent? Would you call Alessio Zerbin a talent?
No, I would not. And he's not a young talent. He's 26. Like. Yeah.
So he's not young and he's not a talent, but that's what he was described as, a young talent, which is quite amusing.
Yeah, it's this Italy's this magical place where you're a talent until you magically turn into a senator, There's no in between.
No, there isn't. There isn't. Right, let's leave it at that. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. So we'll be back with the Q&A, which we're going to record on Monday as well, but we'll push it out. When will we push it out?
We'll probably push it on Wednesday, yeah, because the Champions League is on Tuesday.
Wednesday or Thursday, actually, because it might be Thursday, actually, we push it out. I'll tell you why, because I'm going to do a post-match reaction on the Inter versus Barcelona game. I'm going to be doing it on Wednesday, hoping to push that out Wednesday as early as possible on Wednesday. It might be early afternoon. I'm hoping early afternoon. We're going to try and get that out Wednesday, as early as possible on Wednesday. So we'll push that out, and then maybe Thursday. It might be Thursday. But anyway, those are the three things we've got coming. The other two things we've got coming this week. So until then, ciao ciao.